party system has failed, and I believe it now because if you look, everything's partisan. There's no the Congress and the Senate can't work because there's no compromise, and government and politics are supposed to be the spirit of compromise, and it doesn't exist. The Trumpster's got this thing, it's his way or the highway. If you disagree with him slightly, or if you prove him wrong, you can pretty much figure you're going to be out of work. I think the only thing that's keeping Dr. Fauci in place in the Trump administration is that he's served both Republican and Democratic presidents. He's been known to be fairly politically neutral. Getting rid of him would result in quite possibly political revolution. I mean, there would be Republicans that would definitely come after Trump, the Trumpster, for that. He's just because of that, because he's the most respected man. He and Governor Cuomo are considered to be the two most respected voices in the country on the coronavirus. So you don't want to. I don't think you really want to piss them off too much. Let's see what else. Well, that's my big thing. Is this political thing? It's bothered me for a while. I mean, I wrote about a story where I've met people in my lifetime, and they're friends of mine, and they're still friends of mine. Take politics out. We just don't discuss politics anymore. But say I'm classified as a Democrat, and the reason I was classified as a Democrat is because I worked for the Democratic County Committee for a while, and I did that straight up and honestly because my mother had a Democrat, was appointed to a job by a Democrat, and I was told that it would be to my benefit, to my mother's benefit, to be a Democrat. Until I moved out of the county. Once I moved out of the county, I stopped voting. Because I was so disgusted with what I saw that went on. I mean, there was one politician, well, I can't remember what he was running for, governor or something like that, and there was evidence to say that he had been involved with underage teenagers. He was involved with the liquor business, and there was all sorts of words about corruption and bribery and whatnot following him around. And rather than asking questions whether this was true or not, the people I knew said, "Well, no, we have to support him because he's Democrat." And that was pretty much the end of me in the Democratic Party. When I first moved to Morris County, they saw to it that I could still vote in Essex County, so that I could vote for the Democrats. And there's a lot of corruption going on. I mean, it's an everyday thing. It's at every level. There's different definitions of the word corruption. I mean, you don't have to take money. You just have to push something that you know is bad for somebody else, just to let somebody else do something they want to do. Because then they owe you a favor. I mean, it doesn't have to be exactly money. It has to be favors. I mean, if that's done in D.C. all the time, or it used to be done in D.C. all the time, when they would sit around and talk about going to make a deal on a bill or something like that. There would be a little bit of push and shove here and there, and then they would put the guy needed something, but they wanted this bill through. What they would do is they would put a rider on the bill that gave the one guy what he needed, and then he would support the bill. And in the meantime, a lot of people got screwed, but because they didn't have a say in what was going on, because a rider is just something that's added to an existing bill and doesn't get a discussion, doesn't usually get debated, so nobody really knows about it unless they read the congressional record on a daily basis, which is like the minutes of the meetings sort of thing, And it's all that was to be expected. That was political. Now it seems that people are so polarized by being either a Democrat or a Republican that they comes around and they hate the Trumpster, or they think the Trumpster's the second coming of God. Now that second coming of God is something I have a serious problem with, because they used to say that Reagan was the second coming of God, but now it's the Trumpster, And I mean, Reagan was bad for a lot of people, a lot of reasons. He was good and he was bad. He was good for the rich and bad for the poor. The Trumpster's trying to do the same thing. Only problem is he's bad for everybody. Everything that he does hurts everybody. I mean, his coronavirus response was slow and not very effective. He's blaming everybody, the Chinese, Obama, everything else. I think, if he hates Obama so much that 25 years from now, if he's still alive, he's still going to be blaming Obama for something, arthritis, whatever, That's ridiculous. I mean, you can't keep blaming a past administration for stuff that happens, Like I said, just because Obama put a health care plan through, well, the Republicans couldn't do it. So, he did. So, it's too bad, because they still haven't come up with they keep complaining about it, but they still haven't come up with a good replacement for it, So I guess we just have to deal with their stupidity, because they worry about socialism, and they like to point to countries like Venezuela. They say, you want socialism? Look at Venezuela. Venezuela isn't a true socialist country. Venezuela is a totalitarian government. I don't believe that's a true socialist government. I'm not going to get in the argument, because I still have things to learn about socialism and whatnot. I do remember, I don't know, I'm not going to say, I can't really swear to this, but I remember reading that somebody said that John Kennedy once was quoted as saying that communism, in its truest form, might be a better form of government than democracy. Now, that people say that's the reason he got shot. I really don't know about that, but that's the conspiracy theory I try to stay away from. But I do realize that when I studied it and looked at it on the surface, he might be right. But I think it was supposedly he qualified it by saying that it can't exist in its truest forms because of human greed. I mean, you look at they claim Russia's a socialist country. Russia's a dictatorship. It's not because they elect this guy. That doesn't mean anything, There's so many countries that are out like that. It's the same, like I said, it's the same thing in Venezuela. They have an elected official, so they say, well, this is socialism. He was elected, so it's his party's just a socialist party. And nah, he was elected, but he's a totalitarian leader. I mean, he's not cutting anybody any slack. He rules with an iron fist. So does Putin in Russia. And there's others across the world, that are like that. The Trumpster is you got to remember, the Trumpster at one point in time called himself a Democrat, and then but the Democrats didn't want anything to do with him because of his labor policies. His policies he got a lot of problems with his labor contracts and whatnot, and then at that point in time, Democrats were considered the party of labor, the worker, the everyday guy, and Trump doesn't treat the everyday guy real well. He doesn't believe they're just supposed to stay in the background like children. That old saying, children should be seen and not heard. Well, that's pretty much what he feels about the common folk. They should be seen, but they shouldn't be heard. They shouldn't be listened to. So he became a Republican, and I don't know the philosophies of all the Republicans. They say big business is good, big business is bad. I'm like every other person in the country. Wake up, go to work, come home, sit back, watch television, get laid, do whatever I want, pet the dog. That's I don't want to be bothered. The fact that I don't live in the country anymore is because I couldn't afford to live in the country. I couldn't afford to retire. I couldn't work anymore. Really, the kind of work I was doing. I didn't see a great future in it. I saw if I stayed in the United States, I was going to be, worst thing that could happen to me was that I reach an age where I can't do what I was doing, and I end up out in the street. I end up living in one-room apartments someplace, in Newark, or not. I don't want to say it like that. That's a bad thing because then Newark gets mad at me. But you know what I'm saying too. And not in the greatest neighborhood. I lived in a nice neighborhood. My Social Security check would barely cover my rent, wouldn't cover my food for the month. So I had to move one way or the other, and there wasn't. New Jersey's a very expensive place to live. There's not a really nice part of the world where my wife would have been happy that's a cheap place to live. So she wanted to come back down here, and I came back down here, and I'm looking at it right now, and it was a good decision, and financially it was a great decision for me. I didn't get a stimulus check, but I don't really need it because of the way the exchange rates are and everything down here. I'm living quite well on my what is it, $1,400 a month right now. So right now the virus thing is helping us tremendously because we're able to save money and pay off our debt because we don't go anywhere. We don't run around the country all the time. I don't have a million doctor's appointments. The doctor's appointment don't cost me anything. Getting to the doctor costs me a lot of money. Getting back and forth from the doctor costs me money. But I'm going to have to do something pretty soon about doctors because I tore my knee up and it's not really getting that much better. So we'll have to wait and see what happens there. But I think it's time for the American people to take a real stand, and I don't think by voting for the Trumpster they took the stand that they should have. They voted for the Trumpster because they wanted change, and I don't think they got them the change that they wanted. I don't know what. That's just a bunch of racism and stuff that came out, and made the country great again because it's too. What's the term? It's too multinational now. Too much multi-racist. It needs to be white to be successful. Hasn't worked in a lot of countries. Being black hasn't helped a lot of countries. It's one race is really not going to. So long as there's more than one race on the planet, one race is not going to survive over the other one. China needs us. We need China. Japan needs us. We need Japan. It's India needs us. We need India. It's just the way it is. But until we in this country can learn to compromise and work together politically, I think that then I believe that the two-party system just doesn't work. That's what affected Bernie Sanders' run for president. He came across he says he's independent, but he sits with the Democrats, and then his so-called proposals were considered to be socialists, and socialism can work, but it takes a lot of planning. Most countries jump into it because of revolution or like that's going on in this country, a dissatisfaction with the political system as it stands. So they'll turn to something like socialism because socialism promises equality for everybody. Well, so does democracy, but it doesn't exist. So it's not going to exist in socialism either. I have socialized medicine down here, so I can go to the doctor anytime and it costs me pennies. But let's say my knee's messed up right now, and if I want to see a specialist, I have to go through a certain procedure. It could take 2-3 months, a month, 2, 3, whatever. If I want to see the specialist right away, I can, but I have to pay for it. Now, when you say you have to pay for it, when you look at what they charge as to what they charge in America, it's a big difference. I will get into some of the medical costs and whatnot at another time. I've been sitting too long, and I need to go lay down so I can stretch my knee out. Listen, you all have a great weekend, what's left of it and everything, and stay safe, be careful. Don't listen to the Trumpster, listen to the professionals, the scientists and whatnot. Do that social distancing, wear the mask, whatever you have to do to stay healthy, okay? Okay, all right, take care now.